Narcissistic friends don't magically appear when we grow up, nor does narcissistic abuse. Narcissism is a parasitic consciousness that is as prevalent in kids as in adults, and often it can be much easier to see and recognize in kids, because the same patterns we see in children simply become more covert and subtle when these small humans grow up. These patterns don't disappear, though, they only become much stronger. In this video, I will give you an example of a narcissistic dynamic between girls from the earliest years of life to around 15 years old. The same will be true for boys and mixed friendships. It will show up in slightly different ways due to different social conditioning and biological differences between boys and girls. So this video is for everyone. Remember, the underlying patterns of narcissistic abuse are always the same, no matter the physical form of people, concepts, creations, etc. Narcissistic abuse that starts in childhood and teenage years wears us out and preconditions us for stronger abuse later on. Those that abuse us in our later years might seem totally unrelated to those from our earliest experiences. However, they are all connected through narcissistic consciousness, and at the end of the day, they all work toward the same goals: life force extraction, suppression of humanity, and the creation of a false reality that supports that life force extraction and suppression of humanity. Please let me know in the comments below if you recognize these patterns from your childhood friendships and if there were any others or any thoughts that you might want to share. Also, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you find my work helpful to show me that I should keep making these videos. These seemingly small gestures mean a lot and strengthen my focus and will to uncover the world's patterns and share them with you. Remember, humane people need one another because they don't elbow their way out to be heard. Imagine a group of 4 little girls, peers, living in the same neighborhood. 3 girls' mothers have known each other since childhood, and 1 girl's parents moved into the neighborhood to escape narcissistic families of their own. The neighborhood is very cliquey because it is not popular for people to move, but rather stay in their childhood neighborhoods. All the other people around have lived in the area for generations. They don't like strangers, and also, the political and social environment is such that people are distrustful and hostile toward everyone, especially strangers. As you can see, there is a bigger narcissistic abuse system that divides people. This is another aspect of it. As you can see, the parents were trying to escape one narcissistic system only to get into another. They chose the most free option for them because they dealt with the narcissistic world, with narcissistic systems all around. The freer option was not possible for them. Their family narcissistic systems would protect them from the outside world in a sense, but would use them as their own supply and would indoctrinate them into the bigger narcissistic systems they belonged to. They chose to be free from that, so they had to deal with the consequences of lacking protection from their narcissistic family systems. What you can see from here is that the new girl is put at a disadvantage from the very beginning in the reality she's being put in. Not only do her parents feel scrutinized and observed, which makes them feel uncomfortable, nervous, and like they don't belong, but they are also being treated like they are not welcome there, which changes their emotional state and narcissistically abuses them. This, in turn, is passed on to their children. Because of the lack of status around her parents in that environment, she is seen as an easy target. She becomes someone who is easy to use as a pawn in the hands of the other girls. The girls intuitively know they can mistreat her. They can mistreat her much more easily because they will get away with it. If they mistreated any of the other girls, they would get in much more trouble with their mothers who know each other well. They also know that they cannot become a friend of the new girl simply because their mothers would force them into being friends with other girls. It's like mutually exclusive. The new girl is also being used as a tool to get revenge on other girls when they argue with one another and to make them jealous. She's invited when they need her and devalued and disposed of when they don't. That says nothing about her. She's been put into a reality that works at her disadvantage and makes her the easiest narcissistic target. She doesn't know that yet and blames herself. She also doesn't know that this abuse gives her more freedom than the other girls have. Often, the girls like her one day, and the next day, they don't speak to her. In the morning, she had great fun with them, but in the afternoon, when she returns, she encounters an invisible wall. They agreed not to talk to her when she was away just for fun, and now they simply ignore her. Again, there is nothing wrong with her. The only thing that works against her are the circumstances of her being the weakest part of the group, not protected by her parents and their status. Manipulation techniques. Triangulation. The girls use the new girl to create jealousy and fuel tension between themselves and other friends. Gaslighting. The new girl is made to feel that there is something wrong with her when, in reality, the abuse comes from the girl's manipulation. Rejection and love bombing. The girls cycle between being friendly and ignoring her to create emotional confusion and dependency. Isolating. By not allowing her to be accepted into the group, they isolate her and create emotional dependency on their approval. Scapegoating. She is blamed for the group's issues, often without reason, to deflect attention from the narcissistic behavior of the others. She then goes to school, and because the three girls form the largest group of kids who know each other so closely outside of school, they become the ones with the most power in making games and gatherings in the class. They have the power to make someone part of the games or reject them, which makes the entire group reject them too. They do this to different kids. They play with others as if they were toys, and every kid wants them to like them because that gives them status in the class as being cool and liked. At school, they don't pick on the fourth girl from the neighborhood more than on others, but they have more power over her and her emotional state because they walk home the same way, and she would have to play with them after school or be alone. Sometimes, they treat her like she's a great friend again, and a moment later, they stop talking to her and walk faster, leaving her behind. They laugh, and she knows they laugh at her and ridicule her. She starts to learn that being alone is safer because it shields her from the roller coaster of euphoria and hope when she's love-bombed, followed by rejection and disappointment when she's devalued. Does this sound familiar to you? It probably does, and it makes you feel sad and mistreated because it brings back emotional memories. Even if you can't remember the exact situations, you will feel the emotion, the terrible feeling of being played like that. It happens to everyone, one way or another. Manipulation techniques. Love bombing, when they treat her as a great friend, then reject her shortly after. Devaluation, the sudden disregard and coldness from the group after once being accepted. Isolation, the new girl is left out of the group intentionally to reinforce her feeling of worthlessness. Kids are very cruel with their narcissistic abuse, and it is much more overt. Not always, but it can be seen much more easily, and the patterns that are built throughout the years never disappear. They become invisible roadmaps for life. The beliefs you form about people as a child shape how you perceive the world and others. The more you are burned in childhood, the easier you are to be abused strongly later in life. School is a trap in the emotional sense and a very good environment for narcissistic abuse. It is where narcissistic systems form, and you become either a victim or an abuser. If you don't want to be a victim, you often have to become an abuser to protect yourself. So, in many or probably most cases, you are either an abuser or a victim. If you don't want to abuse a class scapegoat, you are associated with them and become part of their abuse, or the former scapegoat may begin to abuse you to free themselves from their position. Manipulation techniques. Victimization and role reversal. The scapegoat can become an abuser to change their social status and escape their previous position. In-group/out-group dynamics. Those outside the clique are marginalized and subjected to power plays by the dominant group. Let's return to the tale of the four girls. As time passes, the fourth girl learns that with people, she is always mistreated, that it is not worth caring or fighting for approval, and that she never knows whether she's going to be liked or devalued. She seeks other friends in hope that things will be different. But that is not easy for her because, unbeknownst to her, every time she had a new friend, the friendships were sabotaged by the three girls behind her back. Her friends were fed lies about her. They were told that the fourth girl gossiped about them and ridiculed them behind their backs. These stories were fed to them consistently over time, until their minds couldn't distinguish between their own perception and the forced false perception. They accepted these fabricated stories as truth. So, out of nowhere, the fourth girl loses another friend. The situation looks exactly the same, like the previous ones. One day, she had a great friend, and out of nowhere, the friend's attitude completely changes. The glass wall appears again. Manipulation techniques. Smear campaign. The girls spread false information about the fourth girl to sabotage her friendships and isolate her. Isolation through social pressure. The lies told to others about her prevent her from forming new, meaningful connections. So the pattern is from the same source, even though she doesn't know it. She learns even more that she can't trust anyone and that she's always rejected. She then finally finds another group of friends that are considered the cool group. The three girls lose their grip on her reality because the new group is too strong and too big for them to reach her, providing her with some protection. However, although this new group improves her social situation and shields her from the old group of abusers and her narcissistic family dynamics, the new group of friends also comes with its own forms of abuse. She knows that if she leaves, she will lose the protection and become vulnerable to the other abusive groups in her life, so she endures. This is the norm in the world we live in because it is parasitic, predatory, and hierarchical. One group or relationship may protect us from another, but they are all abusive in different ways. There might be exceptions, but I have never seen or experienced one. It makes complete sense that I did not because the core fractal of the world is predatory and parasitic, so even the best-meaning relationships or groups are affected by the constant sacrificial, parasitic, predatory, and hierarchical programming. Being different from the norms means being excommunicated, so it forces everyone to comply or else be naturally banished from society.